Welcome to the Been There, Done That podcast with Angela Dunn-Cartledge. Hey there, it's Angela from Been There, Done That. If you're navigating the wild, unpredictable world of grief, I want to invite you to something special. It's called Messy Mornings, and it's our free weekly newsletter filled with real talk, gentle reminders, and support that actually meets you where you are. Each week, I'll send you stories, reflections, healing prompts straight to your inbox. No fluff, no pressure, just the space to release, feel, and heal. You don't have to do this alone. Head over to donethatpodcast.com and sign up for Messy Mornings. It's totally free and it's made with you in mind. I've been there, and let's walk through this together. Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Been There, Done That podcast, and I'm your host, Angela Dunn-Cartledge. I am here with my new good friend, Le-an Lai Lacaba, and we are going to talk grief and business building, how loss can help us be better entrepreneurs. I can't wait to have this conversation, Le-an. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Tell us a little bit about you and what you bring to the world and your passion.
The passion part always gets me because I always categorize myself as a multi-passionate person. So primarily what I do is I run a virtual assistant outsourcing company here in the Philippines. I'm currently right now in Thailand, where a lot of our focus is not just about getting someone another virtual assistant, but actually getting them a second brain assistant. Other than that, beside that, basically, I'm also a virtual assistant coach. So I teach on YouTube a lot of virtual assistants how to get started online. Part of why I also ended up starting a business as well on it. And then at the same time, I'm an AI consultant, I'm an author, I'm a podcaster, I'm a full-time digital nomad with the chaos of traveling everywhere else in the world. And as well as like I'm a very newly minted wife. I just got married about 4 months ago. So a lot of good things, a lot of exciting things happening around.
There's always something, right? That's so exciting. Congratulations on
Thank you.
getting married. It's a really, it's a fun thing to do, and there's so much learning involved in it too. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to watch how you fly in this season, but in this journey in general. I'm really intrigued by the concept of how our stories lead us into doing what we do, and really, your business is so critical to the world right now. There are so many of us, just like what you described, that are doing our businesses in wherever we want. We're doing them in our country of origin. We're doing them in other countries. We're doing them all over the world. And the only reason that we can have this conversation is the beautiful technology that connects us to each other. And that would be truly a virtual assistant would fit that bill completely. But to the point that you brought up, that you are here, the reason you did this business was not because not just because you saw a problem and you wanted to solve it, but because you, Le-an, had a transformation that needed to be gone through. So talk us through kind of the part that you feel comfortable talking about, and how you got to the point that you wanted to start a business as a result of it.
So it was funny because like a very common, very understandable misnomer that people think about me just because I have a virtual assistant business is I was a virtual assistant myself, but I never was. I did almost everything else but being a virtual assistant. I started when I was 15 years old. I got my very first writing gig online. No one was asking. I was 18 years old basically. I used my mom's PayPal to get paid. So it was a whole like funny jump start. And then I did video editing, became a graphic artist. I did marketing. I ended up working at a book publishing company, which as a bookworm was very, very much the dream to be a book editor, to be paid to read. But as I was starting that trajectory, when I was 18, I survived a Category 5 typhoon in my hometown where I had the water all the way up my neck. I had this split second. I remember it because it's one of those things that stretches in my mind all over and over again. And when I feel like I want to give up, I remember that moment where at 18 I thought like, oh, if I died, I wouldn't be happy with the life that I lived. So I was like, either I catapult myself into the Asian path of becoming a lawyer, because it's either lawyer, doctor, engineer, or accountant. You're Asian, or I do something else. Like I live a life that I want to write about, and that's essentially the first catapult, basically, in very much getting out of my teen years. And then I basically dropped out of college. I finished my last semester in college of like the third year, and as I was supposed to go into my fourth year, I dropped out because I had severe PTSD and anxiety and panic disorder from essentially almost dying essentially at 18 years old. And then I joined this startup company. That startup company ended up needing someone to run it as CEO. And at 19 years old, I raised my hand. I'm like, I want to learn how to run a business. And essentially got trained up. By 20, I was like running that business. And then at around 22, 23, I had the itch of like, oh, I want to do that. I want to know how to start and actually run my own business. And I started creating at the same time videos, because around the 23, 22-year-old mark, my sister, who I share a birthday with, it's actually going to be our birthday in 2 days, was asking me like, hey, how did you get started? Like, what did you do to get like your first job online? So I turned it into videos that I would send to her, like, okay, you click here, you do here. And I'm like, oh, other people are probably wondering how to do this as well. So I just started uploading it on Facebook, and then eventually got on YouTube. As we were talking right now, I'm about to hit 40,000 subscribers on that YouTube channel. So it was more of a one thing after the other, and then it also shifted to business owners then asking me like, "Hey, I see you teach other people how to be a virtual assistant. Can you teach me how to hire an assistant?" And then it then morphed into, "Hey, can you hire the assistant for me?" And basically, in the first like 2 years that I started to XU, it was very slow. It was very like intentional. I didn't want to just hire 100 virtual assistants. I want to make sure that it made sense to start the business the way that it is. And around the almost 3 year mark of the business, my mom got, I remember it was like 2 months after we hit like 2 years into XU, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. And it was sadly like right away stage 4, because this was around the time it was still highly in the pandemic. It was like December 2020. Um, my mom couldn't, when she was starting to feel symptoms, the doctor says like, oh, it's a hyperacidity. It could be this thing. They couldn't do any tests without like swabbing her and doing all of the thing. So by the time that we found out, I remember that moment of like, I was actually the first one who found out, because my mom was under anesthesia. She was getting a colonoscopy. It was basically colon cancer. And the doctors told me like, yeah, it's stage 4 colon cancer. And I remember in my head of like, oh, and now I have to tell everyone else in the family, and I'm the eldest. So I'm like, oh, I have to tell, all of the siblings of my mom. I have to tell my dad, everyone else. And I was like slowly telling them. And by the time my mom woke up, I was the one who actually told my mom, not the doctor, because she asked me point blank. So it was then this catapult of like balancing being a daughter who was home most of the time, and also then balancing like, at that point 2XU was starting to get like really good momentum. So I had to balance a little bit of both. And then sadly 5 months later, my mom passed. And it was then back to that, like, okay, who am I? Like kind of like refiguring that out, because I was still a daughter to my dad, but then don't anymore have my mom. So it was still kind of figuring out. And then I remember that my mom, even though she wasn't always my loudest cheerleader, she was always proud. So in my head, and I remember my mom, one of my mom's last words was "make me proud." So then, you know, I'm getting chills telling this that part.
Ew, me
Um,
too.
there's actually this very vivid. I always keep it in my head where it was 6 a.m. I was sleeping on my mom's hospital bed together, and she just got diagnosed. And I remember she said, "Le-an, I'm proud of you." And I remember that like vividly. And she said, "You fought against me. If anyone has ever met Asian moms, they call themselves a dragon." And she said that you fought against me, the dragon. I dropped out. I didn't go pursue the career she wanted. I moved out of my house basically at 18 years old. She said, "I'm proud of you. Like you got here where you are, where you have a business. You're doing your own thing." So basically, in the last 4 years since my mom has passed, every single time I can like, do I want to do this? Am I tired? Am I going to do this? Am I going to keep showing up? I remember that conversation my mom said unpromptly, of like her saying that in the hospital bed at 6 a.m. after just finding out that she might basically pass away. So those are, it's funny because like naturally a writer, I'm naturally a storyteller. So like for me, when I like spun up, like, okay, this is like nothing really is a coincidence. Things always happen for a reason, which was actually my mom's favorite quote, was things always happen for a reason.
It's such a great way. I mean, you took us through that in the Cliffs Notes version, right? Like that was the fast forward version of all of
Yeah.
those
I was like
amazing and
11 years of
yeah,
me.
really in
Yeah.
a 7-minute span of time, we just went through 11 years of your life. But it's so powerful to hear the levels that you described that, okay, here I was this old, and then I was and we went on that same journey with you and were able to sort of grow with you even in that very short amount of time. But what I really heard and what really resonated with me was you kept saying, I go back to that conversation. I go back to that moment where the water was up to my chin and my head was tipped back to get air, which I have tears just thinking of that. I go back to that because I have to remember. I have to remember that it can't be as hard as that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do it any better than, it can't be that I give up because I'm making her proud. She's proud of me. Those moments of why. How do we get to, without experiencing a typhoon, uh, how get to that moment? How do we find our fire?
I think a lot of it is self reflection, to be honest. I remember, sadly, up to when my mom died, I remember that vividly. I journaled almost every day. I rarely missed a day that I journaled. Since my mom passed, I didn't actually journal, haven't journaled as much. Uh, but I think it was with that I was able to, because for me, like I said, I'm naturally a storyteller, I'm a writer. So it's how I piece together, oh, this thing happened like a year ago. Now it's coming to, actually, now it makes sense. Now it's actually coming true. Way back in March, I said like, oh, I want to do full time digital nomad. Now, like 6 months later, I've been doing it. I've been living it the last 4 months. So, I think that's where it starts. Like if you pause and listen to yourself, um, a lot of things can come out, just because then you're quieting everyone. Like I always joke that I'm a recovering people pleaser. Again, as the eldest daughter, eldest granddaughter, I had to, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
In all ways, same in all those
Yep.
ways.
Yep. Yeah. So it's important that you pause and listen to yourself versus like listening to everyone else who always has something to say. You pause and listen to yourself.
Such a great lesson. I've never really heard it spoken in that particular way. I've had people, and I myself have done work on trying to get to that place, trying to find that thing that will always bring you back to center. That you go off the rails because something bad happened. You lose a client or someone says something terrible and it affects your reputation for a brief moment. You go off the rails and then you need a centering. You need something that brings you back. And you know, like I said, I've done that work, but I've also tried really hard to involve as many experts on that field as possible. But the idea that you quiet everyone else and you
Mm-hmm.
bring yourself forward, because even in that moment, tell me if I'm wrong about this in your experience, but even in that moment, you still have to kind of get through some of the riffraff first. You're
Yeah.
going to say some really stupid stuff. You're going to journal that I'm terrible at this. This is not my path. And then
Mm-hmm.
once that's out of the way, you can get to the truth. You can
Yep.
hear now the clarity of your voice. I love that so much.
Yep. Exactly. It's funny. It's like when I was, I forget how old I was, but like I heard this voice note. It was actually Gary Vaynerchuk who said like the mean voice in your head is not actually you. It was like everyone else in your life telling you that that's you, but that actually never was you. And I'm like, I remember like that, and my brain was like, oh, that's when I started taking out the people pleaser part of me. But it took a while. But I always think of that as like the mean voices in your head is not actually you. It was other people saying that about you, but not actually you saying that to yourself. So,
But you're basically like replaying those tapes over and over
mhm.
again. It is powerful. So then we need to tape over that tape, right? We need to, I'm a little older than you, so I remember the days when you would have instead of being able to just stream whatever you wanted to on TV, you had to actually put it on a physical media, right? And then somebody
I lived through that, yeah.
then you'd accidentally tape over it. In this case, we're intentionally taping over it, right? We want to say
Yep.
life-giving things. We want to do life-giving things. We want to
Hmm.
remember the good and the bad, the reasoning behind not giving up. And
Exactly.
I really see that resilience in your story, that it is about saying, but I don't want my life to be defined by this moment, by a typhoon that I could not control, by the fact that I'm only 15. I don't want that to be the end of the story. I want there to be more than that. And it's so hope giving, in my opinion,
Oh.
to look for the light in those moments. And I applaud you. I am hugging you from literally oceans away. That hope will change the world. That you placing that pebble will now have a ripple effect to other people to be able to find the hope in their own stories. So then you are in that position, right? You have a thriving business. Your mom has just passed away. Was there a pivot moment? Did you have to do something to get back on track, to remember? I mean, you've already said that you remember through her last conversation with you, but what are those pivot moments like now, as opposed to the way they were at the beginning?
I guess part of it is, so a little bit after my mom passed, that was in 2021. In 2022, um, I had to shift the business a little bit all over again. Mostly because I messed up. Um, at that point, like 2XU was growing so fast, I still haven't like hired a manager. Some people were being delegated by application, mostly because like I couldn't keep up. Like, of course, at that point in my life, I've never been here. I've never had 20 something clients, looking at their EAs, trying to see like, do I want to keep working with 2XU, or do I want to just get my EA, or what's the value of this? It was I hit a little bit of that growth point and essentially lost like half of our executive assistants at that time. I don't blame anyone. It's basically 27, never been at that point of my life where I was at that like, okay, now I can move forward basically. So I remember that like a moment of like, oh, okay, now this is a new lesson. But then I also remember the feeling of, even if I think I just got to that point in my life, and I always joke that it's because I developed my frontal lobe finally, where I got where um
Real.
basically, right, I'm like, oh, like I'm now a full human being. Even if I fail, I'm okay. Like I now have that at the back of my head of like, even if I splat on the ground, have to start over again, I'm okay. And I had to learn that so much the hard way. And now like I have an amazing team. Everyone looks out for each other. We look forward to quarterly meetings, even though like most of the time I hear people dread their quarterly meetings. We look forward to it because we have really good discussions, and I love my people. But I remember that version of me where I was just like in it, of like trying to figure out, what the heck do I do now? We've lost most of our EAs, our clients are slowly leaving, and I'm like trying to figure out like, okay, I can figure this out tomorrow, but I know that even if I fail today, I can still figure this out the next day. Um, and that was kind of like the thing that kind of kept carrying me through the last 3 years since then, of like building the team, doing this, doing that, of like keeping in mind that, yeah, it doesn't have to always be an end all be all. It doesn't have to be black and white, like, oh, now I've literally gone through most and more most people that I know in my life, um, that I know that this I can survive this. I'm not asking for more. By the way, universe, I'm not I'm not asking for more. But
Just so
I
you know,
literally, okay,
we're not advocating for that. Leave it alone. Leave
yeah.
it alone.
So 48 hours ago, Angela, I was in Cebu, where I was there when the 6.9 magnitude earthquake hit. I was in on the 18th floor of a condo when the condo started swaying. And in my head, I had that feeling of like, I did not ask for this, but I know I'll survive this. And I took my sister, my dad, my uncle. We went down the stairs, and I'm like, why is this happening? But at the same time, it was the like, oh, it's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll always figure it out. But I put that as part of the joke, like me saying that I've gone through most people literally 48 hours ago. That was my experience in life. But it's just that of like I know I can make through it. I can find and make sense of this.
That's what I'm hearing, is that you have to sometimes we have to contract to expand. That there's this
Hmm.
moment where that we think, you said you messed up, but honestly, you didn't know it any better. Now you do. So there's a lot of growth that comes from that knowledge now. But at the time you thought, who else is going to do this? Right? I'm the leader. I'm the one doing the
Hmm.
thing, so I have to do it. But other than that, I see the hope in it, but I'm always looking for the hope. That's the whole point of this show. But I really see that you're giving us a little insight into, hey, by the way, this isn't going to be just smooth sailing because you're successful. This isn't going to just stay here and we're maybe going to just incrementally increase and everything's going to stay just like this. In
Hmm.
order for us to go to another level, we have to contract a minute and then go forward. And
I
it's
love
that
that
old
actually.
adage of, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back. Well, you're still net 3 steps forward
Hmm.
ultimately, but we don't see it that way. We see it as
We
we
feel the
messed up.
2 steps back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah.
messed up. So we failed in that way. And I just love that your story is so consistent in that every time you get pulled back to center. You're on the 18th floor of a condo building, and you're like, it's I know this is hard. I'm not taking away from this exact present moment. What I am saying is, whatever comes out of this will be okay. This isn't failure. This is just a contraction that we're going to come back from. Granted, this was a small contraction,
Yeah.
which is good.
It was just
But
scary. It was
yeah,
the 1 minute the building was shaking. It was just very, very scary. I'm like, is this it?
you
I'm like,
think
okay.
thought you think, even though you're 18 floors up, you think I am on solid ground, and you're not. And so there's this thing that we do to ourselves too, and that was kind of where I was going to go next, was the idea that we build up our levels, right? We do it to ourselves. We build up our own levels, and then we realize that one of them is not as stable as we thought it was. How do we go back down the stairs and find that the weakest link, if that makes any sense, and then try to fix that in the middle? If that is that something that you've experienced yet? Maybe I should ask it that way.
Well, I think I've experienced that multiple times, in different angles, I guess. Like there's always like for a while, it could be my people pleaser. It could have just been like me always trying to give people chances. Like I was really bad about, like I said, giving the wrong people too many chances, and that's something that I've been called out on multiple times. And I keep getting better, but it's just very small incrementals because I've given myself like so much wide berth basically of like being able to grow, being able to get out of it. But I know not a lot of people fall into that. But um
Not everybody
there's
takes the lead, right? They don't allow themselves to expand in those moments.
yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I
So
hear you. Yeah.
um there's things like that where I would think like, oh, I'm now here, I'm like, doing well, and then something doesn't feel right. Like it's that I'm not sure if you've seen like that cartoon where you have like big fluffy bed, like 10 stacks of beds, but you have that one little like ball underneath of one of them, and you just can't like sit right or lie down right. It's there will always be like that, and I think when you are someone who is taking bigger leaps than most people, if you are someone who l- I guess for me, like I like being uncomfortable in a certain way where I know I can grow from it. There will always be that small ball. There will be it won't always be in the same place. It'll move around even, which will drive you crazy. But then I think that's part of kind of choosing this kind of way, this kind of life, this kind of like, oh, I'm conscious about the things that I'm doing in my life, instead of just letting other people decide for me. So then I will always have to keep thinking of like, okay, now I'm stable ground, but I know that somewhere in there is a kink. Somewhere in there is like something that I'm not comfortable with, that I have to figure out what it is, and grow from it. So then I can add another stack to my mattress kingdom, and then something else will pop up like, oh, now I'm not comfortable with this. So I think that'll always be part of like the ebb and flow of like figuring out where you are in life.
Love that. I really like the idea of the mattresses because by default, mattresses aren't super stable by themselves. So by layering them, you kind of do get a wobble effect. But you can stabilize it. And so I love the that analogy and I can visualize that really easily. I know the audience will be able to too. What I think is important too is that you give yourself the grace that is important. And in this particular time in our world history, I think that is absolutely critical that you say, I understand that I will grow through this, but not another person may not. They may choose to stay where they are. And that doesn't mean that I have to be dragging them by their shoelaces with me. They can stay there and we can go forward. We can grow without them. That in that case, you were talking, I think, and I'm about to clarify that you were talking about coworkers. You're talking about people within your business. But what if that's somebody that's in relationship with you that is outside of the business? What recommendations or what thoughts would you give to somebody that's saying the reason I can't jump forward is because I've got this over here that's really important to me but is not really helping me to grow.
But I totally also mean like people in my life, like outside of business. Like um, I had a 2 decade best friendship that I had to sadly end last year, because I gave her same thing, too many chances, the wrong people, the right chances. And I think the biggest thing is like you do have to put a stand, because then you're also putting a stand on yourself of like I'm a big Swiftie. So I love what she said where your time is valuable. So like if you are giving your time to people who either don't grow with you or don't really give any value to your life, you're just wasting it. You're just putting it to someone who, it's not thinking also of like, just because I put time on you means you have to put back time on me. I'm never that. It's that, is my time something that helps also this person? Is my time also something that we're working with this person, having this person in my life grows them, and in turn, of course, just makes me happy. So I've had multiple of those times where I would look at friendships, I would look at relationships, I would look at the people that I surround myself with. I'm always critiquing the people I'm surrounding myself with because I know whoever I'm surrounding, that's where I'm gonna go. Literally last year, I surrounded myself with digital nomads. Now I'm a digital nomad. So it's that, I'm always conscious about that. And I think the biggest part of it is that is like we will never really know who we are, but it's like who you're becoming. So who are you becoming and who are you surrounding yourself with has to kind of coincide in one way or the other. Now I have another best friend who has I've been friends with for 2 decades. Another one who's been like 11 years. She was actually my maid of honor. But in those friendships, there's been ebbs and flows of like, okay, makes sense for us to be friends right now, or like actually we'll be quiet for a year and then catch up next year, and that's okay. Like that's part of, it's like that math graph. Like part of like sometimes we're all parallel, we're all going in the same path. Sometimes we divulge, and it's okay, because then somewhere in there our path will meet again. So the point of it is then for you, like how are you putting your now, of course, we know very limited time on Earth. Like, where are you putting it?
And indefinite, right? We don't know what that limited time looks like. We don't have
Exactly.
a just an
My mom
automatic.
had 50 years. My mom was like, so, I think my mom was so young when she passed because she was 50 years and 3 months. So, um,
Incredibly, incredibly young. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree with
yeah. So that I always keep that in mind.
I love that. And I think that there is so much to take with that idea that we are constantly evaluating, that we're not just evaluating when something bad happens, but we're always looking at what's around us and making sure that it is still that we're providing it for it and it's providing for us, and then again, I completely agree with you. It's not transactional. We're not talking
Yeah.
about quid pro quo here. We're talking
Oh yeah.
about that it's a relationship in that we are interacting with the relationship,
Hmm.
sometimes equally, sometimes not, but that doesn't matter if it's the right thing. If you had to give our audience a parting shot, something that they could take away and apply to their lives right now, especially if they're considering entrepreneurship, what would you give them as the takeaway for them to start working on right away?
There's a every end of my video on YouTube and all things like even when it's a on a podcast, I always say, remember that small steps matters, and I always remind people, and I also remind myself because I am both my biggest cheerleader and also my biggest bully. So I have to keep reminding myself that of this that small steps matters, and I even add to the joke like, oh, I'm only my I'm only 4'11", and my foot size is like only 5. So I take really small steps, but like you'll get there. Basically, you'll keep in mind that you'll get there. You'll get to where you need to go as long as you keep taking those small steps. You'll stumble, you'll fall, you might want to fall asleep sometimes, and it's okay. The next day you get up and you take those small steps, because that's how some people do take big leaps, and sometimes they'll fall and they won't get up anymore. Some people will slide through it. Some people like helping them up, and that's okay too. But for you, like on your own journey, it's okay to look at what other people are doing in admiring them, but when you start comparing yourself, that's where you start stumbling because you're not looking at your own path. You don't see that you're hitting a wall because you're looking at your friend who's like, in this other country that you've always wanted to go to. You just look at where you're going, where you want to go, take small steps to where it is, make adjustments as you need to, but it's always that small steps matters.
I love that, and that it also um, indicates movement. You have to be
Hmm.
moving.
Yeah.
Standing still, not for very long, is
Hmm.
okay. But if you just stand there and expect it to come to you, that's not how this works. You
Hmm.
do have to be providing the action. You do have to be moving, and consistency too. Consistency helps. How can we
Exactly.
work with you? I know we've mentioned the company a couple of times, but how can we find you in the world and also in the interwebs?
I am literally everywhere. Just because I have an amazing team who helps me make it look like I'm everywhere. So I'm primarily on LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most active, and of course I have like regular videos on my YouTube channel. And I am on TikTok, Instagram. Again, almost everywhere else. My book is out on Amazon. For just 2x2, it's just 2xyou.com. Super simple and easy to find. I am grateful my mom gave me a very unique name, so it's very SEO friendly. So if you just type Le-an Lai Lacaba, you'll find me. There might be a dash Morales because that's my new last name, but my name still is the same.
I love it, and that we can find you no matter what, right? Now we know maiden name and we know new name. Yeah, it's hard to say,
Exactly.
new name. Thank you so much for just your honesty, your vulnerability, but also the hope that you bring us. Thank you for allowing us to learn from you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for creating this space where I felt safe to open up. So thank you so much.